Most of you who have subscribed to me have subscribed because of my Indigo Prophecy playthrough. I have played through the game. I showed everybody what a piece of crap the last quarter of the game is, and how brilliantly paced the beginning of the game was, and how much of a disappointment it was to end the way it did. Heavy Rain, a game by the same company, Quantic Dream, released for the PlayStation 3, as you can see in the upper right, only on PlayStation. They would have to severely downgrade everything in the game to be able to work it on the the Xbox 360. So, 360 fanboys, please don't fret. PlayStation has gone down in price, so ask your mommies and daddies to buy you one and pick this game up. It's totally worth it, even if it's just for the first play. Good and bad parts of the game. Let's take a look at the good parts, since we can go ahead and add those up, and I can gush and gab for a little bit. You have 4 characters. They are listed on the box here. From left to right, you have Norman Jaden, an FBI agent. You have Madison Page out in the front. She's a journalist. You have Ethan Mars. He's a father. And you have Scott Shelby. He's a private detective, private investigator. And all these characters are involved in the case of the Origami Killer. You have the origami piece in the front there. The Origami Killer is a killer who kidnaps children below the age of 12, I think. I think it's between 8 and 12, his victims, or her victims, and takes them to a place to drown in the rainwater. They drown, and then the killer takes them and dumps their body on a deserted wasteland before rubbing mud on their face, placing an orchid on their chest, and an origami figure in one of their hands. You play as each of these characters who are involved with the Origami Killer, either directly into the case or with people who are investigating the case. Let's go on to the gameplay a little bit. We've got an interesting take on how to play a game. A lot of people are saying that it's an interactive movie and that it's just a large QuickTime event. I would say no, but it is in some respects both of those things. You do encounter quite a few QuickTime button pushes, but that's the gameplay itself. It's not like, push X to not die, or push square to not die. You have to react to every little button press that they show up to. You can be turning your 6-axis controller to the left, or to the right, or you could be shaking it up and down. You could be holding 2 buttons while tapping another button to escape something. And you're not completely penalized if you miss one button push. I mean, if you miss the X button when somebody punches at you, you get punched, and then the fight continues. It's not like you get punched and then you get knocked out and then it's game over. Not like in other games, or you get knocked off the enemy like you do in, say, God of War or something like that. One big complaint that I've heard from people that I didn't really notice because I was so into the game is that you have no run button. And I'm sitting here thinking, it's fine if you're going to run everywhere as an action hero when you're trying to save the world from Nazis, or if you're trying to, run from point A to point B and you can't be bothered to walk. But this isn't one of those games. This isn't one of those games where you're hooked up with a gun and you have to shoot everything that moves. You're an investigator, no matter what character you're playing. You're looking into the scene. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're trying to do everything that they place in front of you, and at least on your first playthrough, you're trying your damn hardest to keep everybody alive, because even if you go into this game saying, okay, well, this person's going to die and this person's going to die, so I can only deal with 2 people, I don't think this is the game for you if you're going into the game thinking, okay, I'm going to kill everybody off and then just keep one person. Don't do that. You lose the experience, you lose the intensity, you lose the intensity of the game there's moments where you're in a car trying to avoid traffic, and you have this feeling in the back of your mind, okay, if this character dies, then the story ends, but wait, no, he could die, and then the story would keep going, but I don't want to see him die because I want him to complete his mission. I want him to be able to do what he's doing. I want her to be able to continue on. I want her to see the end. You need to play with that in mind. If you're going into this thinking, you just want one character to be at the end, then you probably don't need to be playing this game. That's the entire point of the game, is to try and keep everybody alive, trying to push yourself through to the end. I like that they have the 3 different difficulty levels, though I have to say the easiest difficulty level is probably the hardest. You don't do a lot of the motions that you would think you would do, so you're left sitting there, and then all of a sudden the button push pops up and you lose out on it. Whereas when you're playing on the hardest difficulty, you encounter every little movement that you think you would do. Say you're running from, I don't know, a cop or something like that, and you're crossing the street. On easy mode, you wouldn't have to push a button to avoid the first car. And then all of a sudden the second car pops up and you're like, oh shit, I have to push the button. Which is fine. I mean, that builds up suspense a little bit, but you don't feel like you're in the character. You don't feel like you're that person. So the way that they did it with the hardest mode, having to steer out of the way of people, or having to push a button and then hold another button while tapping a third button to get past the messed up parts. I mean, yeah, it's more intense that way because you're in the game. You can't put your controller down and expect the game to play for you. The only negative criticism that I really have for this game is you can tell every person in this cast is foreign, either French or English, and they're attempting their best to put on a English or American accent. Some of them get it done rather well, but people like Jaden or Ethan, you can tell that they are foreign, at least in some of the ways they say things, like anything, or they call the origami killer like 6 different names throughout the the game. They're the origami killer, the origami killer, the origami killer. I heard one guy call the origami killer the origami killer. So, the accents really do kind of push away, but the emotions behind them is just, it's phenomenal. The voice acting is really top notch in this game. The major complaint that I have is that the second playthrough will never be anything like the first playthrough. You already know what's happened. You already know who the killer is. You already know where you can influence the story. So you'll never have that intense feeling that you had the first time, but it's still worth multiple playthroughs, not just for the trophy, but to see what could have happened if you messed up this sequence, or if you didn't decide to complete this trial, or if you decided that you didn't want all the characters out at the start and you just wanted to go through with that lone character like mentioned at the start. Save that for your second playthrough. Don't do it on the first. One last thing for the box art enthusiasts. This is the European box art. The previous one was from North America, the United States release. People actually complained about the differences and said that the European cover made the game so much better. It's a box cover. Open the game, put it in your PlayStation, play the game. Put the box down. Just put the box down. I'm going to go ahead and give this game a score of 9.8 out of 10. For previously mentioned cons, I don't think this game is going to do anything for the gaming industry itself. With how game developers are going right now, it's all about mainstream games. And people would not accept this kind of game as a mainstream game because it's so different, because it tries to do so many different things. and because it's so developed in its differentness. Yeah. This is Alexander with Heavy Rain. Peace.